Hi everyone, today I want to talk to you about data visualization or infographics. Now, data visualization is the term we give generally to the idea of looking at different amounts of data, how it works. And it could be in a variety of ways. It could be through tabular data, through graphs, and so on and so forth. And there are entire books written about how to make good graphs and how to visually represent data in different ways. But the thing that we're going to focus on for this class and in this particular module and in your assignment are infographics. Now, if you're not familiar with infographics, infographics essentially tell a story with data. And that's the important part that we want to get across. Remember that we're using multimodal means of communication. In other words, we want to go beyond just text, which is what a table kind of does. Now, a table does represent data visually in that it has kind of an X and a Y axis, and you can look at it, and graphs certainly represent it visually as well. But those are very abstract things, right? A bar graph looks like a bar graph. It doesn't look like what you're actually talking about. I mean, if you're talking about the amount of agriculture that's going on in the Mesilla Valley, the amount of chili that's grown versus cotton or something like that, a bar graph would tell you that, but it still looks like a bar graph. And what we want to do is we want to make it, as professional communicators, we want to make it easy for our audience to understand information. We want to make it easy for them to use that information after they understand it. And one of the best ways we can do that with tabular information, with data or numeric information, is through an infographic, excuse me. So that's what this module is going to look at, data visualization and infographics. Before I begin, let's look at your assignments for this module. You have a discussion that I would like you to answer. This is due on the 27th. Please find an example of data visualization or infographic. Basically, I want you to find an infographic and complete an analysis on it according to the expectations for the discussions, which are posted there. I obviously want you to use the readings that we've had. Is this junk or does it actually work? I want you to evaluate it and answer questions about it. Tell us what the purpose is, tell us who it's for, and tell us what the motivation is behind it, why it made in the first place. And then again, evaluate it according to the readings that we've had. Is this good? Is it bad? And then why is it not good? Or why is it bad? Or why is it good? What are some of the things they could have done better? Okay, so that's the discussion that I'd like you to look at. Moving on, for the project itself, grad students, as usual, will have an outside reading that I want you to do a summary on. For your actual project, I want you to actually make an infographic. So using the graphic software tool of your choice, create an infographic that makes an argument about a subject important to you. The infographic should include relevant and compelling graphics, at least 12 data points, a simple but engaging design, a professional look and feel. Some tools that you can use include MS Paint, Photoshop, or GIMP. That's if you want to make them yourself. Honestly, I don't recommend that. Instead, try to using one of the online tools that I've given you here. There's Canva, Snappa, and Pictochart. Canva might be the best idea. I think all three of them have a free trial, which you're going to have to sign up for, unfortunately, but it'll allow you to drag and drop different elements for your infographic and make a very compelling visual, a very nice, aesthetically pleasing visual, okay? The tools have free versions, as I said, that don't include as many features as the packages that you pay for, but they should be fine for this assignment. The infographic should be created in full color and provide contrast so that data points are easily distinguishable. It should also tell a story. This is an important part about infographics, as you're going to find out during the readings. The story that you want it to tell. What is it that you want us to know, learn, or find important in this graphic? Some ideas are perhaps parking on the NMSU campus, health problems in your demographic or here in our town or even at NMSU. You could talk about climate change, basically anything that you can collect data on to tell a story. I had students in the past do this on smoking on campus, and others do it on drinking on campus, and so forth. You're going to turn this in through Canvas. Now, if it won't let you download and save maybe as a PDF the infographic that you make, you can go ahead and submit the link. That's fine. Typically what they'll do is they'll save it, and you can get a link to it, and it'll allow you to embed it somewhere else. Just go ahead and submit that link so that I can go to it and look at it. And then also, of course, turn in an analysis memo. So in addition to the infographic, you must write a memo to me that analyzes your rhetorical choices made in the infographic. So you must identify what story you are trying to tell or what argument you are trying to make. Discuss the meaning behind the graphics you've used and why they're important elements to your argument. Generally address how you make your argument through this infographic. The memo should be single-spaced, 2 to 3 pages, and include references and citations that support your points. So please follow the guidelines for writing analysis memos. Okay. In the writing analysis memo, by the way, it'll give you the format for the memo itself and all the different things I'd like you to follow and so forth, including length. So those are the assignments that go along with this module. Now let's talk a little bit about infographics. As I mentioned before, one of the jobs that we have as technical and professional communicators is to make information easy to understand for our readers. That way they can use that information to do something. Okay. Now, infographics can be used rhetorically. What I mean is that they can be used to tell a story, and it's a story that you want them to know. So in other words, what you're doing is you're making an argument out of tabular data or numerical data. Okay, you're taking that data, you're adding images to it to make it compelling. The images create pathos in people, right? Gives them a feeling about something. So if you're talking about climate change, for example, you could have use little barrels with radioactive waste on them as your the symbol for polluting the earth or something like that, and that will obviously extract a pathetic type of emotion out of people. They'll get them mad, or they'll essentially go to your cause. Now, pathos itself, if you've ever taken a class with me, I've said pathos itself, emotion essentially, is not a really good way of convincing somebody. You still have to have logos. You still have to have some type of logical argument to back it up. And that's where the numerical data comes in. All right. So if you're trying to reduce the number of smokers on campus, or you're trying to say that there's a smoking problem on campus, not only would you show maybe a set of blackened lungs or something like that, but you'd have it next to the number of students on campus who are smoking or something like that. And maybe the rates of lung cancer as a result of that, right? So the combination of the image and the text create a compelling argument. And those are the multi-modes of communication that we're talking about here, okay? So let's look at a couple of different ideas and what this means from a real example point of view. So let's look at, this is the cumulative median debt for Minnesota sub-baccalaureate certificate recipients from 2012 to 2016. And what I did is I entered student debt. Minnesota was one of the first ones that came up, and so I picked that one. But I found this table on a report that they put out. It's generally a report about student debt, college student debt, something that probably all of you unfortunately know about. I certainly do. So it's a report about college student debt in Minnesota. This table right here, you can see how complicated it is, right? They go over a 5-year period, 2012 to 2016. They cover Minnesota State colleges, University of Minnesota, private not-for-profit colleges, and private for-profit colleges. And then they have all sectors down below. Here you have the years. This column you have number of award recipients. So actually, how many people actually graduated each of those years. And then number of recipients with loans, and then cumulative median student loan debt from each of these, and then percent of recipients with loans. All right. And then if you go look at the bottom, cumulative percent change for all sectors. All right. So here we have a table, and this is kind of a standard table, and it has a lot of numerical data on it. It gives us a comparison, side by side, year by year comparison between different variables that we want to look at. It does the job, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. It has all the information there. Now, how much time would it take for you to explain what this means if you were to have to write it out? It would take a long time, right? Which is the reason why we use tables in the first place, because we don't want to spend time actually writing all of this information out and explaining it to somebody. So instead, we come up with a table, we put it there. Then what we can do is we can summarize what that table means to our readers. We can tell them what we want them to get out of it. But it still takes a lot of information. Let's see if it's explained anywhere. No, not really explained anywhere. But I think throughout the document, they probably refer to this and so forth. But you can imagine how much explanation you'd have to give to a reader to help them understand what all of this means. And also, if I were to ask you, find one specific point in there. Find for-profit private colleges, 2015 number of recipients, right? Or the percentage that graduated with student debt. Would it be easy for you to find? Maybe if you're looking at the screen, it would be. But if you had to find that data point very, very quickly, it might be a little bit more difficult, okay? Well, that's where infographics come along. They make this information a lot more reasonable, a lot easier to find the information, and they also give us some type of symbolic meaning. So here we have an infographic by also the state of Minnesota that displays essentially the same information. In number 5 here, let me scroll up, and this is cumulative student loan debt in Minnesota. A little bit of information here for kind of a key or a legend. And then you have these different sets of data points that they want to highlight. So number 1, annual amount borrowed by undergraduates in Minnesota, total student loans in billions. From 2013, goes every almost two years, up to 2013, or 2003 rather, up to 2013. And stacking the number of books. What do books represent? Well, we're talking about college and we're talking about student loan debt, although you're not buying as many books as you used to anymore. But in any case, that's kind of what the books mean. And you can see it essentially is kind of like a bar graph, isn't it? So we see 2, 3 here, we have 3 again, now here we have 5, and you have different colors to help us distinguish it. It went down a little bit. You also have the data points here, 0.7, 0.9 billion, 1.1 billion, 1.5 billion, and so forth, all the way across. Here we have total percent of graduates with loans. It's easy to see that 66% of people who graduated had student loans, 34% did not. If we go down here to number 5, student debt differs by institution type. That's what this table is all about. That's what the table is really telling us, is the type of institution and the percent of recipients with loans. Oops. Going back here, student debt differs by institution type. We have public 2-year, certificate and associate degree, and then we have percent with student loans and the amount of loans. Here we have private for-profit, certificate, associates, bachelor's, private for-profit right here. If we go back here, we have a private for-profit, okay? So we have the same data points, but look how much cleaner it is here. Look how much easier it is to see the information, to find the different data points. We can see that very quickly, what is the highest out of all of them? Well, it's the private for-profit, because this pencil right here is the tallest. Very easy to find. It's hard to get that out of here. Private for-profit, year 2013, percent of recipients with student loans, 79%. It's a little bit different. I was kind of wondering that. This has an 88%, but maybe it's an average of all these 3, which actually it would be higher because of that. But in any case, simply giving this percentage right here doesn't really help us understand anything about that. Okay, 79%. But if we look at this one, we see, yeah, it's 88%. Well, some might be 78%. But it tells us overall this is going to be the highest amount of student debt, or the private for-profit. So that will help us, that helps frame the message for us. It helps us quickly understand that if somebody's going to a private for-profit college for a bachelor's degree, they are more than likely to graduate with a much higher level of debt than anybody that goes to a state university or to one of the private, not-for-profit colleges in the state. Okay, we don't get that here. It's the same data and it's the same information, but it's not easy to find. It's not easy to tell that story here. If we if we wanted the reader to get that from this table, what would we have to do? We would have to tell them that. We would have to tell it to them in a paragraph and say, refer back to table, whatever this is, refer back to table 2, look at this one part of table 2, and you'll see that number. This is what it means. All right, so we would have to explain it to them. Here, There's no explanation necessary, right? They can simply see it. So that's what infographics do, is they help us quickly tell a story, and it helps readers quickly understand the story. So each one of these points is telling a separate thing that we want to tell them. We want the reader to get something out of this. So on number 5 here, this was made with the intention of telling readers how much student debt each of these institutions carry with them. Again, tells the same story as this one, but it's more compelling here. It's easier to find. How about lower default rates in Minnesota? They tell it with just number of people, cutouts of silhouettes of I guess men and women from the public 2-year to the public 4-year. And again, we can quickly see that the public 4-year has a much lower default rate than the public 2-year does, which has the highest. Private for-profit has the second highest, and so forth. So it allows us to quickly see the story that we want them to see, or tell the story that we want to tell. Student loan debt varies by degree type. So sub-bac, associate's degree, to first professional degree, doctoral degree. This would be I think a law student perhaps, something like that, versus a master's degree, bachelor's and doctoral degree. Now I think we have probably somewhere in here we would have the same amount of information. If I just look, change, that's percent change. Award recipients with loans. Well, this is actually this one right here. Figure 4 is essentially the same information as student loan debt varies by degree type. Here we have degree type down here. Now this has it broken up into degree type and institution type. But if we want to show just essentially that the difference between a doctoral degree and a first professional degree, how big that is, excuse me, and how the trend is over time, this is going to make a lot more sense, isn't it? Because it organizes the information a little bit better. Let me show you another article that also has some of that tabular information. In this article, Minnesota ranks high in student debt, national study shows. You simply have this list of data. It's not even provided as a table, no graphs or anything. So it's kind of a data dump, more or less. And all they're doing is they're repeating what another study had shown. So it does very little for the reader. It's hard to find information. And again, it relies on the reader. It forces the reader to have to go find the information that you want them to find, versus a nice infographic which helps the reader identify information very quickly, and it helps you set the story for what you want to tell. Okay, let's see. We looked at this one. Here's another one. Yeah, here's another one with. These are specific universities, and they do have bar graphs, and the bar graphs do help. But what an infographic does is it, as I mentioned, it pools together the data with visual modes. So you have the pencils here, you have the books here. You don't have a lot of other type of information. You have people here, you have dollar signs over here, which kind of makes sense. There are infographics that do a much better job, I think, of clustering up different symbols, similar to the books. But it creates a little bit more of a relevant symbolism for whatever that data happens to be. Okay. Now this is what I want you to do. What you're going to do in this assignment is you're going to go out and make your own infographic about something that you care about. You're going to create some type of visual compelling story, and it's going to be the story that you want the reader to get out of it. All right. So in other words, I should, while I'm evaluating it, I should be able to look at the infographic and quickly understand the story that you're trying to tell and what I'm supposed to get out of it. Now in your analysis, I want you to really define what it is you want me to get out of it and what I should be seeing, okay? Now there's a lot to infographics. I'm going to let you do the readings and then make your discussion, and we can have a conversation based on your discussion. But essentially, do the readings and look at the psychology of it, why it works, look at the rhetoric of it. What is it about these infographics that make them so compelling? And understand when and where to use them, okay? Now, obviously, some of it's audience-based. It depends on an audience of people who are used to this kind of information. an audience who's never seen an infographic before might not be as receptive to it. Okay, so audience, which is always our first consideration, is something for you to think about as well. All right. Let me know if you have any questions about the assignment. Let me know if you have any questions about the reading. Otherwise, I will talk to you in the discussion. Thanks. Have a great day.